And now we are going to move forward in our prayer books to the Torah service, but first, a sermon. Are you ready? Now, there's some things that I want to explain about all of the sermons, the drashot. For example, you know how I always tell you to listen to the messages, right? Open yourselves up. If you come to the Hebrew meditation class, we focus on the letters and we're practicing connecting to every single letter and the different powerful energy that it can bring to us in our lives if we open ourselves up, if we breathe and we just allow their energy to manifest within us and around us. So for example, I was driving and I turned onto our street, onto 236, and there was this man randomly walking in the street on the side by the cars, you know, walking parallel to the cars, and something quick said, he's going to dart in front of you. And a fraction of a second later, he went immediately across my path. And had I not heard that, right when I saw him just start to turn, I honked my horn, and then he saw, and he went like this, and then he ran out the other way. Now, honestly, had I not heard that message, I probably would have hit him. Because he was walking along this way, I was going slowly, I was getting ready to make that left turn to come to the back of the building, and then he just immediately decided to go in front of the car. You know, a car against a person doesn't matter. It's always the car's fault. So even if you have these split-second messages, it's important to not ignore them. So when I write my sermons, I sit down and I'm like, okay, send me what you want me to say. And then sometimes it's like, not today. And then the next day, send me what you want me to say. No, I'm not going to tell you today. Sometimes I'm lucky, and it'll come on a Monday or Tuesday. And sometimes I'm getting really nervous because it's Friday. And the service is Friday night, and I'm like, are you going to tell me what you want me to say, or I'm going to write whatever I want? Then, lo and behold, it comes. So, this can be also a blessing and a curse, because then what happens is that sometimes people are out there and the blessing is, oh, she's speaking right to me. She knows exactly what I need to hear today. It isn't me. I am just a mouthpiece for the Lord. Or, oh, is she pointing her finger at me and reprimanding me? Like, what's up with this? And so it's not any of that, okay? I am just a vessel. Like when we sing and we pray and I say, you know, make a joyful noise unto the Lord, use your vessel like in Hallelujah. I'm a vessel, I ask for the message, and I share it. I don't talk about politics. I'm not, you know, one of those rabbis that goes and expounds on all that. I truly am asking because the Torah portion always tracks whatever is in our life, that time, that week, that we're supposed to learn. And I know this, which is why all my sermons are based on the Torah. And I'm just like, send it to us. What do we need to know? And especially year after year after year, almost 20 years, over 20 years of doing this, and, you know, I don't know, over 15 of actually having to write all these sermons all the time. I wouldn't come up with all this if I didn't ask. That being said, this Shabbat Shalom, is a double portion. Sometimes we get a double portion so we can catch our weeks up to the calendar, the Jewish cycle of the year. So, boundaries and definitive lines are sometimes not easy to come by. Our Parsha this Shabbat is a double portion, as I've said. Hannah Weisberg states, Matot. So remember, it's Matot-Masei. So the first one, Matot, means a hardened stick or branch cut off from the tree. It also means tribes who have developed into their own individual personalities. Maaseh, the second parsha, means journeys. She says part of the maturing into our independent self is finding our backbone. We all need boundaries in our lives, and they help us define ourselves and need regular maintenance and active defense against intruders. This is hard to hear. As Hannah states, sometimes to be successful on our Maaseh, on our journeys, we need matot, significant boundaries. And this is when the two come together, that they mix and commingle for us to receive this. In a sense, we need backbone. And the question is, where do we draw the line How do we do this without hurting others? What insecurities or fears will come up in us or others as the lines are drawn? Our Parsha this week parallels both, as usual, in extreme ways. And typically, true to fashion, it tracks many of the struggles that we're facing at that time. The Parsha we are meant to study, explore, and process for our individual and communal growth that particular week parallels a particular struggle we are grappling with at the time. Cosmically, this is not an accident. This is why we are meant to read the Torah on a weekly basis and make it our own. God gave us the guidebook. We just have to be willing to do the work and not be afraid to listen and act. This Parsha reveals, upon looking toward moving into the Promised Land and an uncertain future, that the tribes of Reuven and Gad wish to hold back and settle outside the camp. They want to have that land, that particular land, for their cattle to graze upon. At first, Moses is furious. Remember the spies that went out and they scouted out the land and they came back with all these stories, okay? So at first, Moses is furious, thinking they're just like the spies. They're questioning the bounty of the promised land, and they are shirking their responsibility as warriors. In the end, though, a compromise is reached. And the tribes, well, they set a boundary that they defined as being healthy for them and healthy for their future. Moses did not like it. There was heated discussion about their motivations, and then, as we'll have it, gossip flared up. And then it was uncovered that an altar had been built on this land. Remember the incident of the golden calf? Rumors abound that they were now worshiping another god. So not only do they want to be outside, not go into the promised land, now they've built an altar, and it looks like they're worshiping, going back to idol worship. In the end, and there's a lot of commentary on this, they actually were asked, if you're not sure about something, maybe you just need to ask. But in the end, it is revealed that they were asked, and they said that they had built the altar to Adonai, knowing that because they were going to be outside the land, they would need a physical reminder of their spiritual commitment, and then also for others to see it, to literally see it as well. Journeying into the unfamiliar is daunting. Protecting ourselves while opening ourselves to something new is daunting as well. We need balance. The body and mind, they want to go one way, but yet sometimes the soul is way ahead of us and it wants to go ahead of us literally. So Kabbalistically, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai reveals in his teachings that the body enjoys the physical. It has a good time, like on a vacation, but the soul can sometimes feel empty and scared and fearful or sad. So there's a lot of talk about making vows and oaths and promises in this parsha. So the body commits and says, oh yes, I will be there at a specific time. I promise. But then doesn't make it. Has anyone ever been late? You promise somebody, no, you're looking at me. You promise somebody, I'm going to be there. I've been much better about it. But then the soul, so you're late, you don't get there. But guess what? The soul went ahead. The soul got there in time. Because it's not confined by the restrictions of the physical world. So it gets there ahead, and then suddenly there's this void. And that void can then be filled with negativity, fear, anger, hostility, and yes, sometimes sadness. Did you ever get aggravated because you're sitting and waiting? Or let's say you go early to a doctor appointment, you're there early, and then they make you wait an hour. We get frustrated. That's the void between the physical world and our spiritual world, our physical mind-body connection and our soul. We can feel sad, dismayed at our relationships with others when we feel challenged, accused, or disappointed. The tribes had only good intentions, but their decision to protect themselves seemed contrary to the others and the communal goal and the desire to move toward the promise in the land that God had chosen. Yet the very action that they took to defend themselves, to set their boundary, ultimately, in the end, it defends the whole, because their actually eventually being outside the camp enabled them to see that which might be coming to destroy the others and then jeopardize the promise. There is so much we don't know or will ever be able to comprehend about ourselves, about each other, and about the motivations that are driving us. Sometimes they are colored by our own fears and personal insecurities. Someone talks to us, speaks to us, we're not sure what their intention is, and then sometimes they're colored by the desire to actually fight for the common good. Kabbalists look at colors as being an example of compromise and a reflection of what we are spiritually meant to bring toward ourselves, as you know when I tell you about lighting the candles. So there's commentary on this actual parsha in relationship to colors. White, red, and blue make purple. White is purity and infinite light. Red can be for battles, for passion, for struggles, but also for deep, deep love. Blue relates to spirituality and divine pursuits. Mix them all together and they make purple, ultimate beauty. So to quote Rabbi Shmuel Simcha Treister, the colors referred to here in our parsha are a code for the two basic sefirot that define the activity of the divine in this world. Remember when we did the Omer class and we went through all of the sefirot and we had all of those connections that we made. So the colors relate. So these colors here, namely the ones that attach to chesed and gevurah, kindness and strictness, relating to those points in the sefirot, and if you look in the back, we actually have on the upper left the diagram of the sefirot. These two sefirot are reflected in the directions of the right and the left. That's the right and the left in the central column of our being, and by the colors white and red. The color purple signifies the mixture of white and red in the sefira of Tiferet, beauty, which is in the middle of the tree. So if you look in the back, there's that center, in the middle of the tree of the sefirot between chesed and gevurah. The color blue represents malchut, which designates the way the world is actually, in fact, conducted. So in mixing all these colors together, we can find balance in the strictness and, yes, beauty as well. We can bring into harmony all the aspects of our physical world that we grapple with, our fears, our doubts, insecurities, negativities, rage, and yes, too, passion and love, with infinite light, and apply it to our physical world and the way it is actually structured. By being mindful in doing this, we can neutralize negativity and create beauty and harmony between our physical reality, our soul, and then our purpose in moving toward promise. Sometimes being strict, setting boundaries are healthy, and even if the other doesn't like it at first, as in the case of Moses and the two tribes in our parsha this Shabbat, the end result can lead us toward the promise that is intended for us by God if we just remain open, not take things too personally, and have faith that everyone is working with God in mind for the betterment of all. As we go forward into the most negative 3 weeks in our Jewish calendar, you need to know these are the negative 3 weeks when Hitler signed the decree, the Spanish Inquisition happened. It's from July 6th until the beginning of August. Well, actually it's not. Well, there's a little trail after, but it's July 6th until July 27th. We have more of Av that prepares us for High Holy Days, which is hard to believe. But this time, you're not supposed to celebrate. You're not. So, for example, my granddaughter's birthday is July 24th. I'm going to go there and be there for her birthday, but we're not having her party until July 30th, in respect for the 3 weeks. So has anybody found that since July 6th, there's been a lot of negativity? Have you felt that there's been a breakdown in communication? So usually what happens is the Jewish cycle moves around and we are guided by the planets. It's really bad when Mercury retrograde and the 3 weeks happen on top of each other. This year, the Mercury retrograde actually starts at the beginning of August and ends, guess what? The day before Rosh Hashanah. So everything that we're meant to revisit and look at in our lives, we're supposed to do it during the retrograde, and then we go forward into something new. So we're going to go forward into a new year. So just be aware, be sensitive. Communication is going to break down. Nobody's going to understand each other. Cars are going to break down. Computers are going to break down. You're going to be frustrated. You're not going to understand why. And you may, from now until July 27th, feel an oppressive heaviness on your soul. And you just need to say, it's the 3 weeks of Av. So this is what I'm saying. I'm saying to my children, I'm saying, it's the 3 weeks of Av, just put it on a plate, send it out there. God, take care of it. I'm just going to get myself to Rosh Hashanah. And then we're going to have a party and we're going to celebrate. So, sometimes being strict and setting boundaries are healthy, and even if the other doesn't like it as first, like in the case of Moses, we just have to go forward and we have to be mindful and we have to be willing to do that. So as we go forward into these most negative 3 weeks, juxtaposed with the Mercury retrograde that's coming up, which is going to drive us to face issues, while communication goes crazy and awry, let us be patient with one another. Let us mix the colors that make us so extraordinary together to bring about chesed and tiferet, kindness and beauty, so that our physical reality and then our spiritual purpose can be aligned, and that the promise that God has intended for us will be revealed, and we can then bask in the glory of infinite light. Kei mihi ratzon, may God be with us, Matot-Masei, on our combined journey, and help us with Matot, our backbone, and our ability to set structure and boundaries, to define what is healthy and be able to move forward through this Shabbat and beyond, into the promise that God intends for us, with beauty, harmony, kindness, and light. Shabbat Shalom.